The words were written hastily, letters scratched onto parchment by a hurried hand, yet it bore a clear message, a call for aid. Half the population of this foreign kingdom vanished overnight. Bandits and monsters now roam the lands, causing havoc to those who remain. Any of those brave enough to come to the aid of this unknown king and his broken kingdom would be richly rewarded. Some saw the letter nailed to their town's postboard, with a few curious souls gathered around to read. Others heard its words called over the crowd from a village herald, and others still, perhaps, found the letter drifting idly in the wind. Torn and dirt-stained, they could barely make out its words. Regardless of how it came to them, though, the letter's words were fated for them to be read, and those adventurers few knew this call to aid was exactly what they were looking for. There were those that were enticed by the promises of riches and lands. Others were guided by the path to help those in need, and yet some saw an opportunity of a weakened land ripe for the taking. Regardless of their reasoning, though, each one of them got on that ship the letter told them to and set sail for this mysterious kingdom. After a few days at sea, most of the adventurers would start to question the crew on where the captain would take them, but each query was met with silence as the crew had been instructed. It was only when they were far out beyond sight of land or any local sails that the captain broke his silence, calling out a command to the sea mage hidden within his crew. With arms raised high, chanting a powerful incantation, the mages split the air in front of the ships, creating a giant portal large enough for their hulls to sail through, if by only an arm's reach. Once past, the mages let their spells drop, and the portals closed behind them to just shimmer in the wind. But in front, a vast island emerged on the horizon, with an enormous spire deep into the heart of the land, piercing the evening sky. The adventurers came out with a feeling as though the air itself had shifted. They were not in the realm of their homes anymore, all transported through the rift between their worlds into a land none of their people had ever been to before. The Kingdom of Aelor. The ships had to sail to the other side of the island to find a suitable port to dock at. The captains explained that the portals would let them out at a specific spot, but an ever-growing fleet of pirates, under the flag of a self-proclaimed pirate king, was harassing many of the ships that were sailing into the mainland. Along the way, the ship sailed past a harbor that was frozen solid, nearly wrecking upon sheets of ice that had broken off and drifted out to sea. All the buildings and ships in the harbor were covered in ice and snow, with no life to be seen, save for a shadowy individual seen by only those with the keen eye, watching the ship sail by from the top of an icy cliff. Arkhold, the capital city of Aelor, was a 3-day trek from the landing docks, but all the while the adventurers' eyes could not break from the sight of the spire. A great tower of black stone, the spire jutted out past the horizon and far into the heavens, as if it were splitting the very sky itself. The entire spire looked to be made of a single piece of fused black stone, both of nature and unnatural in appearance. Locals that the adventurers had passed along their way to the capital told the legend of the spire, how it was there before time itself, how the founding father of Aelor, the first shield, built his great keep of Arkhold at the base of the black stone tower, surrounding it completely. Some say it is the weapon of a great god, long lost after a tremendous battle. Others claim it is the spirit of Earth itself, trying to escape as we live atop its massive cage. And some believe it to be a bad omen, choosing to live far away on the coasts of the island, yet still always under its watchful gaze. Now, the ruling family of Valcorn live atop the spire, near its peak, as a symbol of their divine right to rule. As the adventurers made their way to Arkhold, onlookers of all sorts gathered to watch the strangers enter their city. Some cheered with a breath of relief, as if finally finding a solution to their plights. Others had concern written within their features, with so many new faces unknown to those who had lived here all their lives. The guards at the city gates would stop and explain the customs and courtesies of Aelorians before they entered, although many adventurers seemed to shrug off these directions soon thereafter. The guards also gave each adventurer a ration of Aelorian marks, rectangular coins made of gold that were the common trade among the people in the land. As they passed through the outer gates and entered into the main town square of the city, the spire towered over them, casting a shadow on the whole of the courtyard. Another, smaller castle wall was built at the base of the spire, surrounding it completely and seemingly cutting off anyone from getting a closer look at the stone colossus, to many of the newcomers' dismay. In the center of the courtyard stood a large statue of a helmed knight with a sword raised high. The plaque at its base read, "The First Shield." Hundreds of adventurers in all sorts of shapes and sizes gathered to answer the call for aid. The courtyard bustled with the sounds of stories, heroic deeds, and loud boasting as many new greetings occur. Among the growing crowd, there are some special few that seem to form a unique bond together, but do not yet know of their importance to this kingdom.
My name is Thurner Evermain. Like most of my kin, I was raised in the mines, in a small forge city named Hammerborough. Bah! Wasn't but a manhole till I saw my first glimpse of sunlight. They sent me out to gather firewood for the furnace, but I was ambushed by a pack of wolves in the wood. The way my axe felt when I swung it for the first time against the beast was intoxicating. An overwhelming sense washed over me, and I knew I had to have more. That's when I decided to leave. I didn't want to get stuck in the same trap my ancestors had fallen into. The axe felt more natural in my grip than the pick or the hammer. There's more out there to be seen than digging up some fancy rocks. And more so, there's more to be fought. I love a good fight, and no foe or beast has bested me yet. I'd like to see what creatures this land of Aelor has in store to quench the thirst of me axe. Ha! And she is thirsty. Darkness is calm, quiet. There is a peace to it that sharpens your senses for the predators hidden within. The brightness of this land is harsh, blinding. It disorients, yet I must adapt if I am to fulfill the mission I was tasked upon. My home is the Shadowfell. My blade follows the will of my queen. I am Erebos Vagarth. I have sworn an oath to the Raven Queen and have been tasked with aiding this dying kingdom in order to broker an alliance for my queen and gain allies in the wars to come. But that is not all that guides my blade, for my soul has been afflicted by the dark arts of our enemies. I am haunted by a spirit of vengeance, and thus I perpetually seek to defeat any of those who would wrong me, to feed its insatiable hunger, lest the spirit consume what remains of me instead. I was once called Callus Dermathax, but that name to me is a distant memory now. I had a wife, a daughter, and a good home. At least, that is what I think. The memories are all fuzzy, and the truth of them is hard to determine. What I can recall with clarity, however, is the card of a black tower. I heard it calling out to me one day, as if beckoning me to release it. Found in the wreckage of an ancient vessel, I found the card pristine, undamaged. The black tower bowled upon its face. In an instant, I was pulled through time and space for what seemed like eons, but I felt the presence of an entity needing me for its vessel. It joined with me, released my bonds, and when I awoke, I was laid out upon the shore of a foreign land. In one hand, I held the piece of paper asking for help, and in the other, the card with the same black tower I could now see on the horizon. The memories of my old life began to fade, but I am determined to discover of what happened to my family. For now, however, I feel the only way to achieve my goals is to assume this identity the entity gave me, Rostam al-Sharik.
Rurik Silverstrings at your service. I'm quite fond of a good tale. I go wherever that takes me, finding the company of heroes such as yourselves that perform the deeds around me to be inspiring for my craft. I am a natural entertainer, and I love to sit around a warm campfire, weaving the tales of adventurers among the firelight. Although I oft only take it down to polish its veneer, or to make it sing its sorrowful melodies, do not be mistaken. This lute slung over my back is my steel. Its strings are my bow. Its notes are my arrows, and my songs its quiver. My stories are the light that distracts from the darkness, but for my foes, I will write the last lines of their ending chapter.
By the stars, I am named Zephyrian Duskwither, but you may call me Zeph. I was born under a rare celestial alignment, prophesied to mark those with a sight beyond the veil of time. A gift to some, but to my parents, I was feared. Believed I brought a curse to the family. I was cast out of my home, but I found solace in the truth of the stars. It was by the celestial lights that I was guided here to be on this island, and as such, so is this conversation so fated that we are all having here now. It is not random that we should be joined together today. Every event and meeting holds meaning, if one can only decipher it. As a practitioner of the School of Divination and the Wizarding Arts, I can conjure all sorts of illusions and false images to distract our foes. Anything to keep them far away from me, as I am not one to want to cause harm on another. But if my tricks can aid my allies, I will not hesitate to use them as such. In my quest, I seek the wisdom of cosmic truths, and I have been guided my entire life by visions of an unyet seen destiny with a large black spire blocking my view into the future.
By the light of the moon, well met, companions. I am Rashar Shadethorn. Though I wish to help the people of this land, it is not in service of these royals, the Valkorans, but by the will of the one true goddess, the Lady Saloon. I trusted a royal once, fought in his wars, bled for him on the battlefield, even saved his own life once. He took me into his service, away from my family. At the time, I thought it good fortune for my efforts, yet it was really a scheme, as he coveted my wife. As I was out performing my duties for the bastard, he took his chances with her as she was alone at our home. I saw smoke on the horizon, in the direction of our home. I knew something was wrong. I raced back as quickly as I could, yet it was already ablaze. The slime had fled the country in guilt soon thereafter, with townsfolk saying they saw him galloping away with deep, bloody scratches on his face. My wife, the heart of a warrior, had fought him off, rejecting his advances, so he decided no one would have her. I ran into the house, still burning, and found my wife still carrying our unborn child, yet it was too late. Sorrow took a hold of me, and I collapsed, holding their bodies within the blaze, ready to follow them into the next life. Yet, something stirred within me, a rage of grief, a fury of heartache, a lust for vengeance. I awoke among the ashes of my home. My hair had turned ghost white, and my arm was severely burned, yet I felt no pain. This is when the Lady Saloon spoke to me for the first time, with a promise. I would do her will on this mortal realm. My shield would protect those within her light. My mace would smite any who opposed her blessing. And in return, I shall have my revenge. For years, I have faithfully fulfilled all she has asked of me, and thus, she promises me one last mission. Aid this land of Aelor, and she will grant me my revenge.
I am the one and only Aurel Nightshade. Pleased to meet your acquaintance. But really, the pleasure's all yours. In my land, I was sold by my bastard parents as a young boy into the service of a traveling cirque. They needed the coin for their drinks, and well, I suppose I was too costly to keep. The ringleader, Alonzo, was a cruel man. I was beaten daily, tattooed as a harlequin and made to be a clown. It was a terrible childhood, but I was ever the quick learner. I learned how to play the crowd, telling jokes, performing tricks, singing songs, and entertaining the masses. Anything to cause a distraction. While I dazzled and spoke to the unsuspecting crowd members, my companions would sneak underneath our bench stands and take whatever loose things were in their pockets. Nothing too much to cause a suspicion, of course. Well, at least not at the beginning. We hid everything underneath Alonzo's nose until we had acquired enough wealth to leave for ourselves. But in our last job, we messed up and got caught. You see, the last couple years of our little endeavor, we started to take a little bit more here and there, just enough for people to start to notice and start talking. After a while, the cirque was starting to gain a bad reputation, and poor Alonzo couldn't figure out why. Then one night, we had a few lawbringers visit for a show, and well, they were just too good for us to swindle, and we were all caught red-handed. But of course, they couldn't blame the poor kids that were forced to do the bidding of their corrupt ringleader. The night they took Alonzo away was the first time I ever tasted wine, and nothing has ever tasted quite so sweet. It almost made me understand my parents' dilemma. Almost. I heard of this Kingdom of Aelor's plight, and I knew the first to be taken advantage of would be the young ones. And to that, I must intervene.
The name's Duncan McCockiner. As a changeling, I can morph into all sorts of different forms. Human, dwarf, orc, even a minotaur if it fancies the right maiden. I'm even keen to take the form of beasts, owl, bear, owlbear, bear owl. That's an owl that had been plucked clean of his feathers. That one's quite the story for another time. But what I like to change into most is whatever will be the funniest thing at the time. I'll go wherever a good joke will take me. Even landed myself in the realm of the gods, if you can believe it. For years, I wandered the astral sea, entertaining and performing with me box of tricks for all sorts of divine entities. Until just a few days ago, when some giant owl god with a skeletal head and green flames in its eye sockets told me of some prophecy about some titans or whatever. I don't know, I wasn't paying attention. Anyways, next things I know is I was on a boat heading for this here island, and well, I just kept going along with the jokes since.
A loud horn rings from above, and the crowd falls silent. From the top of the spire, the metal box of a chain car slowly descends against the black stone. It rests finally at the top of the inner wall, and a dozen knights step out. Clad in armor the shape and form of an owl, they methodically line the crenellations. When they meet their intended mark, they stand as still as rooted oak, save for their heads that turn and rotate, watching for potential threats. The herald called out loudly, announcing the arrival of King Roland and Queen Lena of House Valkorin. The king walks out slowly, followed closely behind by his queen. A fairly normal-looking man, dark hair with a streak of gray peppered through, and a shortly cropped beard wearing a modest iron crown. Age and troubles line his features, giving him a weathered look. The queen appears similarly, but instead with a deep auburn hair. The king begins to speak as the crowd goes quiet.
I thank you, all of you, for answering my call. 6 moons ago, Aelor was ravaged by a plague without warning, but not one of sickness or death. No, instead we endured a plague of vanishment. Our kingdom has fallen into a calamity of unknown origin. Countless numbers of our citizens and soldiers vanished without a trail to follow, claiming nearly half
of the kingdom. The king pauses momentarily, looking solemnly back at his queen, who fails to keep the stalwart appearance she's trying to present, showing small signs of grief in her face.
Not even my own family was sheltered from this blight, as my daughter, the Princess Aurelia, is among those that's missing. Monsters, pirates, vagrants, and traitors have all used this opportunity of pain to take for themselves. Our efforts to reclaim those lands with our army have failed, and there's only enough left to guard the people of this city. So we must turn to you all for help in restoring order. I promise you, honor our kingdom, prove your worth, help my people, and you will be richly rewarded. When we retake our lands and towns back from those that would destroy us, you will have your prize, I swear it. Now go, make yourself familiar with this city and the people here. When those in need of aid are ready, they will post their claims on the town square board. May the Titan bless you in this journey, and may you prosper in your endeavors. For Aelor!
A loud cheer echoes the king's, and he turns back to the chain car. The queen and the owl knights followed closely behind. As the chain car rises back to the top of the spire, the crowd disperses to see what the city has to provide. The first stop that many adventurers would search out was the town's inn, the Copper Flagon, a place to get a nice drink and fill their bellies after a long journey. The inn was warmly lit, hearths with fires burning in them, and already filled with the laughter and cheer of locals. Men-at-arms relaxed together after a long shift on the watch. In one dimly lit corner, a group of masked individuals sat at a table watching the newcomers enter, never seeming to touch their cups. And at the other side of the room, a man was getting bested in an arm wrestling competition against a particularly burly-looking woman with red runic tattoos covering her arms. Thurner was the first to climb up to the bar top. Rostam followed closely behind, ready to drink away his sorrows and find solace at the bottom of his cups.
What will you be having, loves? I've got stock of all the normal lot, save for mead. I got a brew of that in the works, but it won't be ready for some moons now.
A flagon of your finest ale, if you'd be so kind.
And I will take rum, the strongest you have.
The innkeeper was a kindly-looking old woman with deep wrinkles around her eyes and auburn hair that had grayed with time. Elaine, as she introduced herself to the newcomers, sounding more stout and youthful than she appeared, with a pep to her speech as she talked. Rurik was quick to make good conversation with the innkeeper.
I'd like to spring a deal with ya. If ye will allow me a room to stay while in town, a nice meal, and a few flagons of your finest ale, I'll play for the inn on my old lute here, and entertain your patrons each evening.
Elaine was quick to agree to the deal. A loud cheer could be heard from the other side of the ale hall, where a large crowd was beginning to gather. The adventurers took intrigue in the commotion and decided to investigate closer, pushing their way through the onlookers. A game was occurring on the table between 4 locals on a 3x3 grid, designed with multiple playable pieces, each having unique abilities for a variety of strategies to take control of the board in order to ultimately win. The game was intricately designed, with many layers of complexity and interesting rules by one that could only be described as a master gamesmith. The new adventurers were unamused and quickly moved on. A commotion could be heard coming from back out onto the city streets, catching the attention of many, and the adventurers quickly left the inn to see what it was. A large frogman was not so pleased with something, and had started to pick a fight with the local guards. The guards ended up having to drag him away, kicking and screaming in anger. As they left the area, though, the guards could be heard speaking to the gathered crowd. "Move along, folks, move along. Nothing to see here. This one's unusual and just had a rough day. We know just what he'll need to calm down." Across from the Copper Flagon, the sound of swords clashing and the banging of shields could be heard as men-at-arms trained their skills in the yard. Barracks made of stone that attached itself to the outer wall of the city stood tall and strong amongst the other structures. A large banner draped from the crest of the front roof, an iron-banded shield emblazoned upon it. The Shields of Arkhold, the guardians of the city and the last line of defense for the Aelorians. As the noble protectors of the city, the shields guard against any that would harm those looking for refuge within the city walls. Walking around Arkhold, the shields were a common sight, watching from the tops of the outer wall, posted at every gate, and patrolling the streets. Zephyrian and Erebos ventured into the barracks. A sense of pride could be felt within as they entered. In the barracks, many of the shields could be seen training amongst allies, sharpening their weapons, reinforcing their gear, or preparing themselves for their shifts. Each shield donned a cloak with a number of chevrons sewn into the cloth, indicating prestige within the ranks. Most went about their business uninterrupted as they entered, but one member did seem to take notice and approach the two newcomers. As he moved closer, the other shields could be seen giving a salute to the man as he passed, crossing their shielded arm in front of their bodies.
Good day to you, brothers. I can see you found interest in the shields. We could always use the help of more able-bodied men, if you would be interested. I am Daemon Valcorin, commander of the shields.
Valcorin? As in the royal family?
The king is my eldest brother, yes. But I renounced my royal birthright to give back to the city that had given so much for my family. I swore an oath to protect and guard Arkhold long ago, as a brother of the shields.
A noble deed you've done, Commander. I respect your choice to put others before your own desires.
The two speak with the commander for a bit longer and ponder on the aspect of potentially joining the shields. Along the walk through the city, there were many sights and shops to be seen. The group found a general store made from the hull of a decommissioned ship named the Hollow Galley. The store owner inside was an older man with an intriguing accent named Arg. The group also came upon a heavily armored dwarf working on some wares named Ormond. His forge was in an open-air configuration with two shacks set on either side. Ormond told about how he crafts and sells armors out of one of the shacks, and his brother, Oland, does the same but for weapons from the other. But his brother, he explained, has been missing for a few days. The worry in his voice was hard to miss, even as he tried to hide it. An opulent-looking building with bright purple walls drew the attention of the group. The sign outside named it the Reliquarium. Within was a collection of encased items and objects of unique importance to the owner, Rulio. Rulio told the group of how he was a connoisseur of relics and would pay handsomely if any adventurer would bring back any unique items to his liking that they might find while out on their missions. An archery hall named the Tilted Quiver showcased the perfect spot to train and test out one's prowess with the bow. Fletcher, the hall's keeper, also explained how he liked to tinker and create experimental arrow tips, like those that explode on impact, or perhaps a crystal tip that shattered as soon as it was loosed, sending out a wave of tiny razor-like shards, or even arrow tips fastened with drill bits that drill into and through armor if you land your shot. The party came across a large tent with a canvas made of the sewn-together pelts of a variety of odd beasts. Horned skulls and bone trinkets could be seen decorating all around the tent. Loud music and singing could be heard coming from within. As they entered the outer flaps, trophies from hundreds of hunts adorned the walls. Skulls, horns, and wings of all shapes and sizes. The entire skeleton of an enormous basilisk hung from the ceiling, tied up with thin strips of leather. The cheer and merriment heard from outside the tent stopped suddenly, as all inside seemed to hush and look in the direction of the new-coming adventurers. A sense of unwelcome was felt in the air, when at last, a voice from behind the group loudly shouted,
By the Titan, look at the size of that one!
A small figure hurled himself onto Rashar's back and used his weight to knock Rashar off balance, tumbling to the ground. A roar of laughter went up in the tent and the music started to fill the air again, as the halfling who knocked Rashard down performed a somersault up onto the table and landed with a bow.
Master of the Hunters Guild and undefeated slayer of beasts, Aelor Lestat, at your service.
Rashard groaned and pulled himself back up. Was that completely necessary?
Not at all, but it was fun.
Aelor answered the group's questions about the club. The Hunters Guild was comprised of many formidable and skilled individuals, all with one goal in mind: take down as many rare beasts as they could. A rowdy folk, you'll often hear their loud cheering and singing, alongside stories of their great hunts. To claim their kill, each hunter collects a piece of their prey, a tooth, a claw, a lock of fur, or whatever they can think of to showcase their victory. Taking this trophy back to the guild's ritual shaman allows them to draw the essence of the beast out to empower themselves. Each member of the guild adorns their trophies on a special necklace that's blessed by the shaman in order to tap into this essence. As great hunters of both formidable beasts and entertaining stories, the Hunters Guild is always welcome to new members that enjoy the thrill of the hunt as much as they do. While walking through the city, Erebos seemed to have a hard time adapting to the bright sunlight of Aelor, perhaps due to his many years living within the Shadowfell. The others noticed how he had trouble reading the local signs and figuring out where buildings connected to each other. When Erebos came upon a large oak tree with a deep hollow in its trunk, he claimed to believe that there would be something of value stashed within, but when searching into the hole, he found nothing and left disappointed. When Erebos was heading off to his next destination, however, Thurner decided to give the hollow a second check. To his amusement, he found a letter hidden within that the Shatterkai elf could not see. The letter contained a crude map with the words, "Our stash, not yours." Following the clues of the map, Thurner was able to find where the curious treasure was stored, only to find a small leather sack filled with tree nuts. Unable to determine what to do with the nuts, Thurner stashed them away for safekeeping. The group came upon a large wooden great hall. A guttural chanting could be heard coming from within. As they entered, smoke filled the air and stung the eyes. The source of the chanting could be found within, as the crowd of heavily tattooed individuals gathered around the hall's center pyre. A body wrapped in burial cloth laid atop it. A large, bearded man wearing a bearskin cloak stood from the highest seat at the focal point of the hall, joining his voice in with the chanting. His chest was bare, showing numerous runic symbols tattooed across his body. The chanting and energy of the room grew with the flames as they rose up the pyre, more and more, until they finally reached the body. All at once, the chanters stopped, and the room fell eerily silent. The body atop the pyre did something the adventurers had not seen before. Instead of catching alight as the flames reached it, the group watched as it crumbled into a fine ash within an instant. Even more strange, a faint light could be seen rising from the body, drifting with the hot airflow. As it rose, the chanters all took in a collective breath deep into their bodies, and their tattoos began to glow with light. Red, green, blue, yellow, and white. A kaleidoscope of color coming from the mass of their bodies, each containing its own unique hue. As the moment lingers and the chanters hold their breaths, the light that rose above the pyre disperses and fades into the air. The chanters all let out an exhale as if in relief and begin to join in pleasant conversation amongst themselves, clasping shoulders and embracing one another. The large, bearded man, now glowing with blue runes across his body, sees the adventurers watching from the entrance and walks over to greet them.
I am Hrathgar, chief of the old tribe. Not many outsiders have witnessed the rites of Ash. Perhaps the Fallen willed you here to see it. What do you make of them?
The group was curious, the cleric, Rashar, most amongst them. Hrathgar kept a stern and stoic demeanor, but answered their questions without issue. The old ways never die while the tribe is still standing. Made up from different clans from all around Aelor, The old tribe follows the traditions of their ancestors, including the rites of ash. When a member of the old tribe falls in battle, their body is collected and set atop a burning funeral pyre. With the proper ritual and the rites performed, the soul is removed from the body and ascends to Easgard to forever lend its strength to the members of the tribe. The ash that is left over from their unshackled bodies is taken and mixed with ink to be tattooed into newer members. With the rites of ash, these souls enhance the tribesmen's hand in battle, granting a temporary boon to them and all nearby allies. Tribesmen with more experience in battle gain the right to be bestowed with more tattoos over their body, one for each kill they make against the enemies of any tribesmen, extending their powers. The group's journey through the city brought them to the tallest structure to be seen, only dwarfed by the great black stone spire, a tower of mismatched stones that looked to be crafted by the works of 20 different architects. The shaft of the tower bent and crooked as it rose, with windows, balconies, and smaller towers bursting out from all different directions. A sign near the bottom of the tower read, "Rumilius's Enchantments." Passing through the small entrance at the base of the tower led them into a small shop filled with all sorts of magical trinkets and baubles. An elderly gnome dressed in fine clothing looked up from his desk, appearing almost annoyed. "We're closed." His tone seemed to express how this was not the first time today he's had to turn away newcoming adventurers. A small name tag on his breastcoat could be seen, reading, "Millicent Ward, caretaker for the High Wizard." "My master, the great Rumilius, is off on an errand and will not be back for a few days. You may exit as you entered. Have a good day." With a clear decisiveness in his voice, the group gave each other a puzzled look, quickly turned around, and headed back out into the city streets without so much as a word to the gnome. Along their walk through the city streets, the group passed through a bazaar with a few smaller shops scattered about. Rurik took some time to peruse the instruments within Harper's harmonic attunements, although none seemed to outshine the interest for his coveted lute. A small traveling cart shop, owned by a charismatic vendor named Joeloquin, sold startup sets and unique pieces for Tactics Toe, the game being played within the Copper Flagon, which the group seemed to not notice, even with Joeloquin's amusing display of showmanship. But as the group passed through, Rostam's attention was drawn to a small tent at the back of the bazaar. The tent was made of a fine fabric, dyed a deep purple, with no signage in front except for a small crystal ball positioned at the tent's crest. Rostam felt drawn to the tent as if it were calling out to him, and he ventured through its front entrance flap.
"Welcome, my friend. Please enter." "A Triton? I have not seen one of your kind in many, many moons."
The words came from the sole dweller within the tent, a woman sitting at a candlelit table, shuffling a stack of cards. Her eyes never left her deck.
"How did you know I was a "I know many things, my friend. Things long lost forgotten. Things hidden far away in distant lands. And even things that have not yet come to pass. I am Madame Azra. Please, have a seat."
Rostam did as he was asked. The woman remained sitting, focused on shuffling her cards.
"With this deck of cards whole, I can see into the soul and make predictions of future events. Yet I have been hindered as of late, as I seem to have misplaced a card, and my predictions have been muddied ever since." "The card that was misplaced was that of the Black Tower."
The words were sharp and took Rostam off guard. He knew what she was asking and nervously grabbed the card from his pack, gently placing it onto the madame's table. She took it and added it to the deck, shuffled them together and spread them out on the table, glancing at the order as if reading a book.
Yes, I see. You have a duty here, Triton. I may not be able to see what the mission is or the outcomes, but I do know you will be of importance to it. Then, and only then, will you be allowed to return to your family. A wave of emotion struck Rostam. My family? They're alive? Yes, my Triton friend. Now, go about your day. You have much to accomplish. Rostam seemed to get up and leave without a thought, but once outside the tent, he found a new strength to complete whatever this task was that he was made to do.
While Rostam was away, the rest of the group found a large lake that resided on one side of the city, within its castle walls. The waters were clear and beautiful, with a small island that sat in the middle of the lake and a wooden bridge that reached out to it. On the other side, another group of adventurers could be seen fishing from the coast, seemingly enjoying themselves at the vast variety of different fish that could be caught within its waters, and their talks on how they could compete together on who could find the largest and most unique fish between their missions in Aelor. Our party was not as interested. Instead, their focus was on an individual that sat meditating on the island. The frogman that had been carried away by the town guards earlier in the day, curiously, not angry anymore. When questioned on what had happened to the frogman, he looked confused and simply replied, I am unsure of your query, yet I am unbothered, for I am at peace. And he returned to his meditations. The party was confused on how one could turn so emotionless so quickly. As the rest were talking to the frogman, Thurner decided to take a look around the island. On the opposite end, and hidden behind some bushes, was a small burrow. Thurner called the others over to help investigate. A small light could be seen deep into the burrow, much farther than any animal could dig, yet the entryway was too small for any of them to enter. Thurner, the smallest of the party, even tried cramming his way through, but quickly got lodged in the hole and needed assistance freeing himself out. The group pondered on what could be at the bottom of the burrow, ready to leave, when a loud pop filled the air. The sound echoed around the waters as the party looked for its source. Zephyrian was now holding a large raven upon his arm, scratching its head gently to the bird's delight. The raven seemed to be made of starlight, as its black feathers sparkled and glittered with every movement.
This is Orion, my celestial familiar. I can see through his eyes as if they were my own. I will send him to fly into the burrow to see where this light is coming from.
Aye, you don't think you could have done that before I nearly got my bloody ass stuck in that damn hole?
I could have, yes, but I thought it would be funny to see how far you'd get in. And you know what? It was.
The raven took flight, and Zephyrian's eyes rolled back into his head as his gaze transferred into it. The hole was even deeper than he imagined, as the bird had to swoop through the passageway for some time before reaching the end. A large room carved into the earth was found at its base, lit by a few candles that were producing the light the party could see. A stone door was sealed shut by some mechanism. In the center of the room, a thin slot in the floor big enough to hold a blade was surrounded by a multitude of broken and rusted swords. The bird was unable to lift any of the blades and soon dissipated as Zephyrian's grasp over its conjuration faded. Zephyrian relayed what he had seen to the rest of his companions, and they agreed they would need to come back at a later date to determine what the room was and how to open the door. Aurel seemed to have a way with talking to people around the city, often using his silver tongue in order to gain some favor or new trinket for himself.
Please, sir, my daughter, she is very ill. I've been left alone to care for her, ever since her mother. Oh, I can't bear to say it. It still hurts so much. God's rest her soul. And the coin has been hard to come by. Won't you please have some sympathy on not only a fellow man, but a father in dire need of help?
The gentle giant that owned the local potion shop couldn't help but feel for the plights of the elf, and agreed to give him and his sickly child a potion of healing each as a gift. Aurel quickly pocketed the gifts and dried the fake tears as he left the shop, pleased with himself for once again pulling one over on an unsuspecting fool. When he came out of the shop, however, he was met with the sight down the road that piqued his interest. An old temple stood seamlessly connected to the inner wall of the city, directly in front of the great stone spire. Although it merged with the inner wall, the stones that made up the construction were unlike the rest, as they mirrored the stone spire with a deep black hue. Some men in black masks that Aurel had seen periodically around the city were gathered outside as the great door to the building opened. Darkness was all that could be seen within. A thick fog poured out from the bottom of the doorway and dissipated into the wind. The masked men seemed to take this as a sign to enter as they all began to shuffle into the temple. Aurel watched as the last of them entered and the great door began to close, but just before it shut completely, it stopped, leaving a small crack left open. Aurel was curious at this and decided to investigate inside. As Aurel entered the temple, the doors closed behind him by themselves. Inside, the fog was so thick on the floor, Aurel could barely make out his own feet. It seemed to flow like water as he treaded through it, leaving a small stream of wisps behind him. The masked figures meandered around the halls of the temple soundlessly, some forming small groups to converse in a whisper, none paying him much attention, except for one very tall figure with an ornate black mask that seemed to beckon Aurel over with an outstretched hand. The darkness faded away as candelabras seemed to alight on their own, casting an elegant glow over the large hall that Aurel now found himself in. The rest of the patrons within the temple seemed to shudder with the light, but soon returned to their whispered conversations. The masked man's voice was raspy, yet soft.
Welcome, my child, to this great monument to the Order of the Ancients. We are but humble shepherds that tend to the unwilling flock. Our duty is to uphold the sanctity of the dead so that they may pass with reverence and honor to their next calling. We tend to the souls that cling to this mortal realm and allow them to be freed from their shackles. I am Celian Diosis, High Caretaker of this order.
The hoods and masks of the Order's members made Aurel feel uneasy, but he recalled walking through the city, how only the newcoming adventurers seemed to share this feeling. The regular townsfolk of Aelorian descent seemed at ease with these individuals, sharing rooms and space with these figures with indifference, and now Aurel knew why. This group was a faction of caretakers, specifically this land's caretakers of the dead. Celian began to explain why the Order of the Ancients was so important to the Aelorian people. It is the belief of the Aelorians that souls do not leave for the afterlife once an individual dies in these lands. Instead, the soul clings to the body, either to be used for the personal means of someone who taps into their power, slaving for the desires of their captor, or it awaits trapped in a cage of their own bones for all time, unless they can be freed. It is the duty of the Order to cleave the bonds of the soul from the mortal realm, so that they may proceed to what awaits them after death. Celian led Aurel over to an intricate pedestal, with a large chunk of black stone resting on top of it. Within the stone, glowing with a soft green hue, Aurel could see what seemed to be a substance flowing within the stone. It appeared to be made of both a gas and a liquid, and swayed back and forth within the stone as if it sat on the deck of a ship.
This is what remains of the ancients. Individuals who resided in these lands long ago. Their histories and technology lost to time. These stones are all that remains of their people. We ask of any who go out to help those in need around the lands of Aelor to retrieve the stones and return them here so that their bonds may be released. Any of those who can fulfill this task and bring a stone back to the Order will be honored and accepted as a member.
Oh, I already brought in one of those stones a few days ago.
What? You have?
Aurel then took the High Caretaker by the shoulder and proceeded to use his silver tongue to conjure a story to back up his lie, weaving in details that he had picked up while walking around the city. In the Copper Flagon, Aurel had listened in on a group of the Order members that conversed in whispers, piquing his interest, and he picked up on some of their names, which he used in his story as alibis. Within the barracks of the Shields, Aurel had overheard a conversation as a Shield brother explained to a curious new adventurer how the masks of the members seemed to denote rank within the Order, although most did not understand exactly how. Aurel even recalled the rites of ash within the Great Hall of the Old Tribe, and how the soul's influence seemed to shine in different hues, similar to the stone that sat in front of them now. With these details, Aurel crafted a backstory of how he had already retrieved and returned a stone to another member of the Order, and was already inducted as a member within, in a lie so intricate and convincing even the High Caretaker believed him.
I suppose that does make sense. Brother Aurel, I apologize for not recognizing your dedication to the Order. I hope to see you at the next induction ceremony in 3 nights' time.
Aurel left the High Caretaker soon thereafter, talking with some of the other members and trying to gain any information he could about this secret meeting they were having and where he needed to be when it started. Outside, as the group walked about the streets of the city, Rashar could not shake a feeling of uneasiness all around him. He clutched onto his idol of Saloon, who had blessed him with divine power, including a sense to detect that which would go against her wishes, or, in her words, evil. The sense seemed to follow him all around Arkhold, until the group came near to the Black Temple. The feeling he had intensified near it, yet not exactly in the direction of the building, but far below, as if something deep beneath the building was radiating with a dark energy. The doors of the building then opened, and Aurel stepped out to rejoin the group, seemingly in a pleasant mood. The rest of the group accepted the elf back along for their journey, yet Rashar could not help but eye Aurel with uneasy suspicion. The day was long, filled with new companions as groups were formed among like-minded adventurers. Ale and rum was shared among stories as the adventurers relaxed together after a long and busy day. Soon, they began to find quiet places to rest their eyes for the night. However, their sleep was not completely restful. As their minds drifted within their sleep, an entity visited within their dreams. Rostam saw his wife, who he had thought long passed until just a few hours earlier. Zephyrian had visions of a woman made from the night sky. Her eyes glowed as stars. Erebos dreamt of his liege, the Raven Queen. Each adventurer saw someone unique that they trusted from their past. The entity took on many forms, yet each gave the same warning. Listen to me. There is not much time. There is one among you that will deceive you and bring ruin to Aelor. Find the one called the Focus. Do not fail in this task. The adventurers awoke with a gasp from their dream. Cold sweat beaded upon their brows. Each one of them, save for the cleric, Rashar, who remained unawoken from his peaceful slumber.